What if the story you were taught about Jesus is only the surface, and the real message was never meant for the crowd? For centuries, billions have believed they understood who Jesus was and why he came. The New Testament Gospels present him as the Savior who died to forgive humanity's sins. That belief has shaped civilizations, laws, cultures, and personal faith. But hidden within the early centuries of Christianity was another voice, a quieter one, a dangerous one. The Gnostics, a mystical group of early Christians, saw Jesus in a radically different way. To them, he was not a sacrifice sent to fix a broken world. He was a revealer, a guide, a messenger of awakening. He did not come to repair this reality. He came to show that this reality itself is the problem. In their view, the world as we know it is not our true home, but a kind of spiritual trap, and we have forgotten who we really are. That idea alone shakes something deep inside us, because it touches our fear that something about this life feels incomplete, staged, almost unreal. And if that feeling is not weakness but memory, in this exploration, we will look at the story of Jesus through the Gnostic lens, drawing from texts such as the Gospel of Thomas and the Gospel of Philip. These writings paint a portrait of Jesus not as a redeemer from sin, but as a teacher of hidden knowledge, someone who came to awaken a divine spark within each person. Most people never question the version handed to them, but if you are willing to look deeper, you may discover that this story is not about guilt and payment at all. It is about remembering. And if you stay with this journey, you may begin to sense that you are not simply learning something new. You are recovering something ancient that was always meant for those ready to see it. As this understanding deepens, even the most emotional moments of the gospel story begin to look different. Take the Garden of Gethsemane. The night air is heavy. Jesus prays in anguish, asking for the cup to pass from him. Sweat like blood, a raw human moment. Most people see fear of suffering, but through the Gnostic lens, the cup carries another layer of meaning. It can be seen as the weight of entering fully into the material condition, the burden of stepping into the trap in order to expose it. When he says, "Not my will, but yours be done," it is not surrender to the flawed ruler of this world. It is alignment with the higher hidden source beyond it. It is the conscious acceptance of his role as revealer. And then there is the detail that often slips past unnoticed. The disciples cannot stay awake. Again and again, they fall asleep. In the Gnostic imagination, this is not just exhaustion. It mirrors the human condition. We drift through life half-aware, distracted by surface concerns, unable to remain present to deeper truth even when it stands right beside us. Could you not watch with me for 1 hour? The question feels personal. It echoes beyond that garden. Can you stay awake? Can you remain aware long enough to see beyond appearances? The pull of the visible world is strong. Comfort, fear, routine. It keeps the mind busy and the spirit drowsy. Awakening is not easy. Even in the presence of light, many turn away. Then comes one of the most controversial figures in the entire story, Judas. In the traditional telling, he is the betrayer, the symbol of treachery. But in the Gospel of Judas, another ancient text, he appears in a strikingly different role. There, he is the only disciple who truly understands. Jesus speaks to him privately, telling him that he will sacrifice the man that clothes me. The phrase is strange, almost cryptic, yet within Gnostic thought, it carries powerful symbolism. The body is described as clothing, a garment. If that is so, then Judas's act is not simple betrayal, but participation in a hidden plan. He helps release Jesus from the physical form that binds him. This interpretation unsettles people. It challenges long-held assumptions about good and evil within the story. But again, the emphasis is not on reversing heroes and villains for shock value. It is on shifting perspective. What if events that appear tragic on the surface are part of a deeper unveiling? What if the real drama is not about punishment and payment, but about liberation from confinement? The same symbolic reading continues at the Last Supper. Bread is broken, wine is poured. This is my body, this is my blood. In Orthodox Christianity, this moment becomes the foundation of the Eucharist, a sacred ritual tied to forgiveness of sins. But for the Gnostics, the focus turns inward. The bread and wine become signs of spiritual nourishment, not literal flesh and blood, but living wisdom. To partake is to internalize the teaching. It is to let the message become part of your own being. The Gospel of Philip speaks of the cup containing wine and water as a type, a symbol pointing beyond itself. And earlier in the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus says, "Whoever drinks from my mouth will become like me, and the hidden things will be revealed." Drinking from his mouth suggests absorbing his insight, taking in the hidden knowledge. Transformation happens, not through ritual alone, but through understanding, through awakening. If that is so, then the Last Supper is not only about anticipating a coming death. It becomes a moment of transmission, a passing on of inner sight, an invitation to discover the same divine spark within yourself. Not to worship from a distance, but to realize likeness. And this shifts the emotional center of the story. Instead of standing as passive observers of a sacrifice, we are placed inside the process. The question becomes uncomfortable, but alive. Are you only watching the ritual, or are you allowing the teaching to change you? As the narrative moves toward the crucifixion, tension builds. But by now, through this lens, something else is happening. The surface drama remains, yet underneath, another current flows. If the body is a garment, if the world is a constructed stage, then what looks like defeat may conceal something entirely different. And that realization prepares us for the most radical shift of all. For most Christians, the crucifixion stands at the center of everything. The suffering, the nails, the cross, the belief that Jesus died to pay a debt for humanity's sins. It is a story of sacrifice and redemption. But within certain Gnostic writings, the meaning unfolds in a way that feels almost hidden beneath the surface of the familiar scene. In texts like the second treatise of the great Seth, the voice of Christ speaks in a startling way. It was another who drank the gall and the vinegar. It was another who bore the cross. The language is symbolic, almost dreamlike. It suggests that while a body appeared to suffer, the true essence of Christ remained untouched. The divine spark cannot be harmed by wood, metal, or death. This is not presented as denial of pain, but as a deeper claim about reality itself. If the material world is limited and transient, then what belongs to the higher source cannot be destroyed by it. The crucifixion becomes less about punishment and more about exposure, a revelation that even death, the greatest fear that governs human life, has no power over the spirit. The spectacle of suffering appears as part of the illusion. The deeper self remains free. Then comes the resurrection. For many, it is the physical rising of a body from a tomb. But in Gnostic thought, resurrection points to something happening now, an awakening within consciousness. The treatise on the resurrection says that it is more fitting to say the world is an illusion than the resurrection. In other words, what we call solid and permanent may be the fragile layer, while awakening is the true reality. The Gospel of Philip makes the idea even more direct. Those who say they will die first and then rise are mistaken. If they do not receive the resurrection while they live, they will receive nothing. That statement carries urgency. It removes the comfort of postponement. It suggests that transformation is not reserved for an afterlife. It is available, or perhaps necessary, here and now. If resurrection is awakening, then it is the moment you realize you are more than your conditioning, more than your fear, more than the roles and expectations placed on you. It is the recognition that the divine spark within you has never been truly bound, only forgotten, and once remembered, it changes how you move through the world. This does not mean rejecting the world in anger. It means seeing through it with clarity. The systems, the pressures, the endless chase for approval or security begin to lose their grip. Not because they vanish, but because you are no longer fully identified with them. The Gnostics believed spiritual growth was not about waiting for a future miracle. It was about inner realization, about waking up before the story ends. And this is where the narrative turns directly toward you. If identity is something you have been wearing, like a garment, and awakening is possible now, then the question is not only about ancient texts. It becomes personal. What part of you is still asleep? What beliefs have you accepted without ever examining them? What fears keep you clinging to the surface of life? There is a quiet urgency in this perspective, not fear-based, but aware that time passes quickly, that most people move from birth to death without ever questioning the structure of the dream. The Gnostic vision of Jesus does not force an answer. It opens a door. It suggests that beneath guilt and obedience, beneath ritual and repetition, there may be a deeper invitation, an invitation to remember who you are before the world told you who to be. If awakening belongs to the present, then this moment carries weight. Your attention matters. Your willingness to look inward matters. Because awakening is not loud. It does not arrive with applause. It begins quietly, like a flicker behind the noise of daily life. And perhaps the reason these teachings feel forbidden or hidden is not because they were meant to exclude, but because they require courage. The courage to question the surface, the courage to look within, the courage to accept that you may carry something luminous that cannot be defined by this world. If you feel even a small stirring while hearing this, do not dismiss it too quickly. According to the Gnostics, that stirring is not random. It is memory pressing against the walls of the visible. It is the spark sensing its origin. And once you sense it, you stand at a threshold. Not everyone will cross it, but those who do may discover that the story was never only about Jesus. It was also about the hidden light within you, waiting to rise. The Gnostic vision of Jesus is not simply a variation of a familiar story. It is a quiet reimagining that shifts the center of gravity from sin and payment to awakening and inner freedom. In this telling, Jesus does not arrive to repair a damaged world, as much as to remind us that this world is not the final measure of who we are. He appears as a revealer, gently pointing beyond the surface of things, inviting remembrance rather than fear. Whether or not you fully embrace the Gnostic perspective, you have just walked through a way of seeing that suggests spiritual truth may rest beneath appearances, waiting patiently to be recognized. If something in you felt stirred, unsettled, or strangely comforted, that response is not accidental. It may simply mean that certain questions were ready to be heard. Nothing about your pace is wrong. Nothing about your uncertainty disqualifies you. The longing to understand, the sense that there is more than what meets the eye, has always been part of the human story. The Gnostics believe the kingdom of God is not distant or locked in the future, but hidden within, like a spark covered by dust, yet never extinguished. Perhaps what you felt here was not pressure to decide, but permission to notice. And as this reflection settles, there is no need to rush. Some ideas unfold slowly, like light adjusting to new vision. What has been opened does not close so easily. From here, the journey simply continues, moving gently into the next layer of the mystery. As I sit with everything we've explored, what stays with me is not a debate about doctrine, but a feeling, almost like standing at the edge of a vast, silent landscape and realizing it has always been there. The Gnostic vision of Jesus feels less like a rebellion and more like a remembering, a gentle turning inward towards something luminous that may have been buried under years of noise. I don't see it as a rejection of faith, but as an invitation to experience it more intimately, to sense that the story might also be a mirror. And I find myself wondering what stirred in you while listening. Did any part of this feel strangely familiar, as if you were hearing an echo of something you once knew? Or did it challenge you, unsettle you, stretch the edges of what you thought was certain? There is no right reaction here, only the one that is honestly yours. I would truly like to hear what this journey awakened in you. If one sentence from this reflection stayed with you, consider sharing it in the comments. Maybe even write a simple line like, "The spark is still there," if that resonates. Your voice adds another layer to this shared exploration. If this perspective moved you in any way, a quiet gesture of support through a like or a subscription helps this space continue to grow, allowing more of these hidden conversations to unfold. Thank you for being here, for giving your time and attention, and for walking into these deeper waters with openness.